Okay, so I need to tell you about my Uncle Frank. Frank drove a city bus for 31 years, not the guy you'd ever call a numbers guy. He couldn't tell you what a PE ratio was if you paid him. But in the fall of 2008, sitting at his kitchen table, watching the news tell him the entire financial system was collapsing, Frank did something that made my aunt think he'd completely lost it. He took almost everything they had, about $60,000, money that was supposed to be the down payment on a little place in Florida for retirement, and he put it into the market. Not some hot stock, not crypto, obviously. This is 2008, just a regular boring index fund. My aunt didn't speak to him for a week. His brother told him he was throwing their retirement into a fire. I'm not going to keep you in suspense. That $60,000 is worth somewhere north of $700,000 today. And here's the thing that actually matters, the thing I think about all the time. Frank didn't have some secret. He wasn't smarter than his brother or luckier than his wife. He just did one thing that almost nobody else was willing to do in that moment. He stayed calm when everyone else panicked. I bring this up because, and I promise I'm not exaggerating, we are sitting in almost the exact same kind of moment right now, except this time it's not a crash, nobody's yelling on the news about it, it's quiet, and that's exactly why almost nobody sees it coming. There's a number I want to give you. Sit with it for a second, because it does not sound like a real number. $124 trillion. That is how much money is expected to change hands in this country over the next 20-some years. Not a typo, not a decimal error. $124 trillion. To give you some sense of how insane that is, that's more money than every country on planet Earth produces in an entire year combined. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly where that money is coming from, why this setup looks almost identical to what happened to my Uncle Frank in 2008, and this is the part I actually care about, what regular, ordinary, not rich people are quietly doing right now to make sure they're not the ones left out of it. Stick with me. I promise this isn't one of those videos that just yells buy gold at you for 10 minutes. Let's back up for a second, because the Frank story isn't just a cute anecdote, it's basically the blueprint for the last 15 years. After that 2009 low, the stock market didn't just recover, it went on the longest bull run in American history. From that bottom in March 2009 all the way through January of this year, the S&P 500 climbed north of 900%. It broke 7,000 points for the first time just a few months back. $100 put in at the bottom turned into roughly 1,000. And this is the part that always gets me, when it wasn't Wall Street guys in suits who made the money. It was bus drivers, nurses, high school teachers, people who just kept feeding money into a 401k while everybody around them was freaking out. Back in 2010, there were about 8.4 million millionaire households in America. By the end of 2024, get this, that number nearly tripled, almost 24 million. That's 15 million households that crossed the $1 million mark in 14 years. 15 million. That's basically the entire population of a place like New York City times two, all becoming millionaires. And most of them didn't start a company or cash out stock options. They just, stayed invested, boring as that sounds. So here's the actual question. Why now? Why is everyone suddenly talking about this $124 trillion thing? Because the baby boomer generation, so folks born between 46 and 64, currently sit on roughly 52% of all the wealth in this country. Something like $78 trillion held by one generation. The youngest boomers turned 62 this year. The oldest ones are closing in on 80, which means over the next 2 decades, all of that is going somewhere. To kids, to grandkids, to charity. Researchers at Cerulli Associates figure something like $16 trillion goes straight to heirs, another $18 trillion to charitable causes. Gen X is set to inherit around $39 trillion. Millennials, and I know a lot of you watching are millennials, are looking at something like $46 trillion coming their way. Even Gen Z is going to start feeling this by the 2030s, but here's what almost nobody mentions when they talk about this. It's not really about the inheritance itself. When $124 trillion starts moving around, it doesn't just sit in a bank account, it gets spent, invested, poured into homes, businesses, the stock market, and every single dollar that moves creates a little crack of opportunity for somebody who happens to be standing in the right spot. Now, the 2008 comparison I keep coming back to it because it's honestly kind of eerie. Back then, three things lined up at once. Stocks were dirt cheap after falling something like 57% from their highs. There was a massive wave of stimulus money about to hit the economy. And most people were either scared out of their minds or flat broke, so they couldn't take advantage even if they wanted to. Right now, we've got a version of all three, just a different engine driving it. Markets haven't crashed. This isn't that kind of moment, but the sheer size of money about to move makes even the pandemic stimulus look small. That whole relief effort was around $5 trillion. This wealth transfer is 25 times bigger than that. And just like in 2008, almost nobody's talking about it. All right, so what do you actually do with all this? Because I want to be really clear about something. Just sitting around hoping to inherit money is honestly a terrible plan. Cerule's research shows that about 62% of this transfer is coming from just the top 2% of households. It's brutally concentrated. A small number of families are inheriting enormous amounts. The rest of us are probably getting something a lot more modest or nothing at all. So if your plan is wait for grandma, I'd rethink that. The real opportunity isn't the check you might get someday. It's what happens to the whole economy while all that money is moving. When trillions pour into investment accounts, prices rise for everyone already in the market. When heirs go buy houses, property values climb in those neighborhoods. When inherited money funds new businesses, jobs get created. There's a Bank of America study that stuck with me. 72% of investors between 21 and 43 don't even believe you can beat average returns anymore with plain old stocks and bonds. So younger money is already flowing somewhere else entirely. AI infrastructure, clean energy, healthcare, that kind of thing. Housing's shifting too, places where boomers settled down, quiet suburbs, retirement towns in Florida and Arizona, might actually see more homes hit the market, which could cool prices there. Meanwhile, cities where younger people actually want to live could get even more competitive. Put the same $500,000 into a growing city versus a shrinking one, and 20 years out, those are two totally different lives. But honestly, if you strip away everything else, the real lesson still comes back to my Uncle Frank. He didn't have a genius strategy. He had money ready to go and the patience to leave it alone. Since 2009, the market's averaged around 10% a year. Somebody putting away $500 a month, not even counting an employer match, would have built up over $250,000 by now. But that road was never smooth. The European debt mess in 2011, the government shutdown in 2013, the trade war in 2018, the pandemic in 2020, that ugly bear market in 2022. Every single time the headline said the party was over. Every single time the people who just stayed put ended up fine. There's a Goldman Sachs number that honestly kind of rattled me. And if you'd missed just the 10 best days in the market since 2009, your return drops from about 17% a year down to 12%. Miss the best 25 days, and you basically cut your return in half. And those best days almost always show up right when everybody's the most scared, which tells you everything about why patience beats panic every single time. So practically, what do you actually do with this? Max out anything tax advantaged first. Your 401k, your IRA, and HSA if you've got access to one. This year, the 401k limit is $23,500 plus another $7,500 in catch up if you're over 50. Don't try to gamble on the right sector. Just own the whole market through a plain, boring, low-cost index fund. Keep a little cash on the side. A shift this size is going to create moments where things get temporarily cheap, and whoever's got cash ready wins those moments. Stretch your timeline out. Think in decades, not months. This transfer plays out over a full 25 years, and honestly, talk to your own family. Just knowing what's actually planned makes life a lot less stressful for everybody involved. Here's the thing that gets me the most, and it's the same thing that got me thinking about my Uncle Frank in the first place. None of this was ever a secret. The 2008 bottom was sitting right there in plain sight for anybody with a brokerage account. This $124 trillion number is published, public, free to read for anyone who wants to look it up, and people still won't act on it. Back then it was fear holding folks back. Today it's more like distraction, the I'll figure it out later mindset. Frank had no clue in 2008 that he was catching a once-in-a-lifetime moment. He just saw that fear had made things cheap, and he moved before he could talk himself out of it. The mechanism's different this time around. But the scale, it rhymes. Trillions of dollars are already in motion. A new wave of millionaires is being made right now quietly, while most people are looking somewhere else entirely. You know the number now. You know the timeline. You know roughly what to do with it. The only thing left to decide is whether you're going to be one of the people who actually did something about it.